Welcome back to Chapter 1, Section 2, where we will cover simple and complex statements. Last video we covered 1.1, sentences, statements, and propositions. Today we're going to cover simple and complex statements. We worked on words, we worked on phrases, and then we moved on to statements. We need to know if a statement expresses one thing or multiple things in order to evaluate its truth or falsity. Why do we need to evaluate the truth or falsity of statements? Because arguments are made up of statements, and in order to evaluate an argument, you must be able to evaluate its components. So now we're going to look at if these components are simple or complex. And a statement is simple if it contains only one statement. Today is Friday logically expresses a simple component. It's complex if it contains multiple statements or multiple components. So the statement today is Friday and I am hungry, this expresses two things. So it is a complex statement. And there are four types of complex statements. Negation, represented by the tilde, meaning not. Conjunction, represented by the ampersand. You can also use the plus if you can't make an ampersand. And this represents and. Disjunction, represented by a lowercase v, and this means or. And finally, the conditional represented by the right arrow, meaning if then. So starting at the top with these four types of complex statements, the negation represented by the tilde or sometimes the minus expresses it is not the case that. Conjunction represented by the ampersand or a plus expresses and. Disjunction, represented by the small v, represents or as well as either or. And finally, our conditional and right arrow represents if-then statements. So those are our four types of complex statements. And again, a statement is simple if it contains no other statement as a logical component. It's complex if it contains other statements as logical components. And then we have a little bit of a hitch because propositional attitudes are always simple. So when someone believes or hopes or thinks, it's simple, and I'll explain why in just a moment. But I want you to be aware that any statement that asserts a belief, desire, hope, wish, or other type of propositional attitude is simple, since its embedded statements are not logical components. And we'll go through that to explore what that means in a little later. So again, a statement is simple if it contains no other statement as a logical component. It's complex if it contains other statements as logical components. And statements expressing propositional attitudes are simple. Believes, hopes, thinks, etc. And this is a pitfall. It's going to try and catch you on the practice exercises, quizzes, and exams. So you need to be sensitive to this. Any statement that asserts a belief, desire, hope, wish, or other propositional attitude is a simple statement, since any embedded statement it contains is not a logical component. And we'll go through some examples and talk about that. If I say I dreamt of a unicorn and a red pizza, the unicorn and red pizza are not logical components, because the question is, did I dream it, in which case it's true, or did I not dream it, in which case it's false? If, for example, anyway, we'll leave it there, and if you have questions about that, feel free to contact me. All right, so to summarize our points, arguments are made up of, composed of, statements. Complex statements contain embedded statements as logical components, where simple statements do not. And you remember our four types of complex statements we just covered. What were they again? Negations. It is not the case that. Conjunctions and. Disjunctions or. Conditionals, if then. So what we hope you learn in this section is to distinguish simple from complex statements, to recognize the four types of complex statements and their embedded components. And these are the negation, tilde or minus, conjunction, ampersand or plus, disjunction, small v, and conditional right arrow. So a way of thinking about this from another angle is that if it is a statement and it doesn't contain a negation, conjunction, disjunction, or conditional, then it's simple. If it does contain a negation, conjunction, disjunction, or conditional, and it's not a propositional attitude, then it's complex. If it's a propositional attitude, you need to explore the proposition to figure it out. And that is how we distinguish between simple and complex statements.